Hey there, hello there. It's Jeff Cutter Diamond with yet another Degrassi video, and this time we look at Degrassi characters. Talk about Degrassi characters in each of the iterations. The first iteration, of course, was Degrassi High and Degrassi Junior High. The OG generation, if you will. So anyway, let's start with some Degrassi characters from the old G. First, Stephanie K. She was Stephanie Kobolowski in 1973. But her parents divorced, so she took her mother's maiden name, Kay. Popular, beautiful, and naive, Stephanie was the school president of Degrassi Junior High. She tried to be more mature with her image, as portrayed in the first ever episode, Kiss Me Step. Unfortunately, the image catches up to her as she tries to grow up too fast and stumbles upon problems. She would leave home with nice apparel, conservative apparel, but then slip in something provocative. Unfortunately, she'd been stuck up and selfish, ruined her student presidency. Stephanie was very notorious and controversial because of her sexualized image and disregard for self-respect. In season 3, she went to private school after her mom wins the lottery. But in reality, Nicole Stoffman got a better acting job, being in Learning the Ropes, a sitcom that starred Lyle Alcedo as a teacher who tried to hide his fact he was a wrestler. But that show, Learning the Ropes, actually ended up being huge because it brought NWA wrestlers, or National Wrestling Alliance wrestlers, like Ric Flair, the Road Warriors, and a few others. Fola Grigogiannis was in the first season of Degrassi. She was Stephanie's right-hand person. Basically, Stephanie's best friend was Fola. Fola would have issues with her parents who wanted her to be very conservative and have old school values, like from the old country, that basically Fola stuff. I can't remember the word, but anyway, Fola was a decent person. Unfortunately, she ended up being caught shoplifting with Lucy, along with Lucy, and by season 2, it was implied that her parents moved to some suburbs. Of course, everyone knows Joey Jeremiah, who was in 67 of the 70 episodes of Degrassi Junior High / High. He was the main troublemaker and all that. He was a guy who wanted to be popular and all that. Unfortunately, he had a lot of roadblocks along the way. He had kind of a standoff attitude towards his English teacher, Mr. Raj, who basically made him flunk grade 8. Joey was forced to sit at the front of the English class all through season 2 and 3. Basically, Joey had been found out. They found out that Joey actually had a learning disability. And basically, he didn't think he was smart enough, but, you know, he got through it. Joey had a relationship with Caitlin, who basically was a good person and all that for him. Unfortunately, Joey messed it up more often than not because of his immaturity and all that. And by the time School's Out came, oh yeah, Joey and Dwayne had lots of fights and all that because Dwayne was a bully and Joey didn't like him and all that. Anyway, so Joey basically ends up in School's Out, the Degrassi movie. He works at Shoppers Drug Mart, where I used to work, and then basically has a relationship with Caitlin and Tessa. Well, Caitlin and Joey's schedules were very hard and all that, so they couldn't see each other. But Tessa had troubles with her boyfriend, so basically Joey went with Tessa. He kept both relationships from each other, well, from the same person, from the other girl. But unfortunately, it backfired for him. Snake reveals Joey's tryst with Tessa to Caitlin. And of course, Tessa ended up getting pregnant, but yeah, Tessa ends up getting pregnant and all that by Joey. Now, of course, Joey would appear in Next Generation, but that's for the Next Generation. We'll talk about Joey Next Generation onwards. Arthur Kobolowski, who was Stephanie's dorky brother, all that. Arthur and Yick had some great chemistry with each other. One of the best friendships in Degrassi history. All that. So anyway, Yik Yu from Vietnam, I believe. Vietnam. So he basically is with Arthur. One early season, one episode that was huge with him was in episode 6 called Testing, when he is convinced that Mr. Radich basically bullies him and all that and picks on him. So he basically decides to test out Radich's hatred by taking a paper that Stephanie, aka Arthur's sister, had written and all that, but Radich realizes it and all that. But Radich does, in fact, admit his mistakes, and Yik admits his mistakes. So they both start with a clean slate, and nothing bad happens. Yeah, so Yik basically is good and all that. Well, there's Snake. Snake came along the first few in the seasons and all that. He was in 67 episodes. So anyway, Snake was a well-meaning boy and all that. It's funny how we got introduced to Snake when he was part of Stephanie K's rally. Says, "I am Snake, make no mistake." Snake is basically a very strong-willed boy and all that. Very tall and very blonde and all that. But anyway, Snake is the moral center of the friendship between him, Joey, and Wheels. So basically, Snake is okay and all that. Of course, Snake is the one who found Claude Tanner dead in the boys' bathroom in that famous Degrassi High two-parter Showtime, basically portraying suicide and all that. So anyway, Snake Snake goes through counseling and all that. He's fine and all that. Snake has a moral center and all that. Unfortunately, Joey picks on Snake for his lack of having a girlfriend. Ian Degrassi schools out, but Snake basically snaps at Joey. All that. Anyways, I said Snake. Well, he was part of Next Generation, so we'll get to Next Generation and all that. Susie Rivera was in the first 2 seasons of she was in junior high. She was actually victimized by a substitute teacher who wanted to take advantage of her, and Lucy for that matter. So anyway, Susie only lasted a few seasons. Here comes Derek Wheeler. The great Neil Hope category. So basically, he was born Derek Michael Nelson to a pair of teenage parents, but he was adopted because the parents didn't want to have a kid. So John and Ellen Wheeler adopted him. So anyway, Wheels, Joey, and Snake formed a band called the Sits and all that. Wheels tries to go out with Stephanie, but Stephanie unfortunately consumes alcohol and gets sick. Wheels thought he was supposed to go all the way with Stephanie, but it doesn't work out that way. So anyway, Wheels actually met his biological father after his 14th birthday. That was in the episode Parents' Night in season 1. He counsels Spike on whether to keep her unborn child or put her up for adoption, because, Spike got pregnant. Wills explains that he's grateful to both his natural parents for giving him a chance at a better life, and to his adopted parents for providing a better life to him. So anyway, in season 2, Wheels starts to wear glasses because he's very nearsighted. So anyway, he gets tutoring and his grades improve that he can actually come back to the Sit Remedy. One major thing is that Wheels and Joey actually sleep over at Snake's home. And they had an mistake that Wheels realized he was going to be late for the optometrist appointment. Joey tries to drive him in Snake's parents' car to the appointment. And basically what ends up happening is that, they think they got in an accident, but it was found out that the broken taillight was actually Snake's dad's fault and all that. So strange as it is, they fixed a broken tail light, and then they are in trouble. But Will's parents basically said that you cannot associate with Joey. So basically, the sit remedy perform at the end of your dance. Season 3, John and Ellen get killed in a car accident caused by a drunk driver. Now, of course, Wheels was told not to be anywhere near Joey, but Wheels disobeyed his adoptive parents and went to Joey's place. But then he thinks he's in trouble because he sees the police at his house. But Wheels' grandmother told him the important story that Wheels' parents are dead. And basically, Wheels goes into mourning and all that. Wheels lashes out at Joey because he realized that if he had obeyed his parents, he would have been to the movies with them. And Joey tells him that, yeah, but you could have been killed too. All that. Yep, so basically, he sneaked up to Joey's house because they needed a demo of Everybody Wants Something. And Wheels was supposed to be there with them. Wheels reconciled, but his grief was huge. He withdrew from his friends, and basically his maternal grandparents took care of him, but he took advantage of them. Yeah, very hostile. When he receives a postcard from his biological father, Wheels hitchhikes and gets him to Port Hope, but he was almost molested. Wheels is told by Mike he doesn't want anything to do with him. So basically, he refuses to drink beer with Snake and Joey because of how his parents died. Not his adoptive parents. So basically, they go into high school with their bond intact. Unfortunately, they have to be hazed by Dwayne. They actually end up shooting a music video for Everybody Wants Something, get into a strip joint, and perform in a feminist horror movie by Lucy. Thankfully, that was a good episode that Lucy did. All that. Unfortunately, Will still has his conflict with his grandparents. They kick him out because he was lying, he was disobedient, and he was stealing. Joey's parents actually allow him to stay at the place, but he ends up stealing from Joey's mom. Snake's parents refuse to let Wheels in the Simpson house, but Snake decides to let him sleep on the porch. Wheels and Joey reconcile when Wheels actually pays back Joey's mom the money he stole from her and performs at the school talent show alongside Joey and in place of Snake. Yeah, Wheels took Snake's place because Joey and Snake were going to do some kind of weird face thing and then, sing their song Everybody Wants Something. In School's Out, he graduated from high school, he's an auto mechanic, and wants to move to Calgary to be with his girlfriend. Unfortunately, Wheels ends up drinking a lot more beer than he should, even though he has passed on it. Unfortunately, he drives with Lucy under the influence of alcohol to pick up snacks. Unfortunately, he collides with another car. He kills a young child in the other car, and he temporarily blinds and cripples Lucy. Unfortunately, Wheels basically is in trouble. Joey visits him in pretrial confinement. But Wheels refused to accept culpability. And basically, Joey and Snake don't want anything to do with him. He's charged with criminal negligence causing death, criminal negligence causing injury twice, and drunk driving. And he decided to plead guilty to all charges. Basically, Wheels is released from prison by the time Next Generation starts in season 1. In episode 1, he's in the pilot. But strangely enough, the Americans did not see it first run his part, even though Canada did. Snake has discussed with Wheels and all that. But anyway, Wheels is in Next Generation when Joey reunites the sit remedy because of Snake's chemo and all that. However, Snake and Wheels finally bond because they both want to die. Snake with his ailment and treatment from his leukemia, and Wheels after killing a kid. So basically, they all have it. Yeah, he was in 2 episodes of Next Generation, and then unfortunately he died in 2007. He was at Neil Hope, the guy who was Wheels, actually ended up appearing as Griff in Kids of Degrassi Street. Cool. Shane McKay was is the next one. He was in 38 episodes. He was in seasons 1 to 4. Well, Shane got Spike pregnant accidentally. Of course, there was a lot of problems and all that. Will Shane take responsibility for the kid? And then, of course, when Spike's parents and Shane's parents meet for a meal and all that, Shane's father, a minister, and his mom basically said that we're sending Shane away, and then you don't have to worry about the baby. He'll be out of your way. However, Shane realizes that basically his parents just want to send him away because A, they view him as black sheep, and B, basically that with news about Shane impregnating Spike and all that, the parents are basically ashamed of themselves and want to get rid of the problem. Shane basically tells them that he wants to take responsibility for his actions, and basically you're just being selfish. So thus he does, and he plans to give his allowance to Spike to deal with Emma. Unfortunately, Shane, the one time he was being greedy and wanted to go to the concert for that money, that was trouble, because at the concert, he and Tim accidentally they basically dropped acid, and although it's not completely clear what happened, Shane ended up falling from a bridge and severely injuring himself with brain damage. He's not dead, but he's now incapable of things and basically is put into a home and all that. Shane does pop up at the finale of Degrassi Junior High at the dance, and then in a few episodes in Degrassi High, but basically after that, he's just forgotten. And Shane would appear in season 3 of Next Generation in Father Figure, the season opener, with Jonathan Torrance being the guy who took the role. And the funny thing is that Jonathan Torrance actually hosted a Degrassi reunion special on Jonovision, his CBC teen show, 1999. So I guess it was natural. So anyway, we find out that Shane is at a home and all that. Emma's trying to look for her father in the wake of having another sibling, because Spike was pregnant by Snake. So practically, what ends up happening is that Shane somehow manages to find Spike and almost hurts her, but Emma saves the day by basically telling him that if you hurt my mom, you'll never be in my life ever again. All right, and so we got Lucy and all that. Lucy, the person who played Lucy, Anis Granovsky, actually was Karen in Kids of Degrassi Street. But anyway, Lucy was portrayed as a wealthy rebel who basically lives alone. Her parents are workaholics who are basically out of town on business trips. Basically, the lack of attention from her parents causes her to act out recklessly. She's a target of Mr. Colby when Radich basically was in the hospital. So basically, she reports Mr. Colby to the authorities. Lucy is a big budding filmmaker who shoots the music video for Everybody Wants Something, and then it creeps the horror film. She thinks she is bad at filmmaking because of her first movie not having the premise she wanted, but everyone encourages her. And forgot the teacher. But anyway, he says, it's your first video. So anyway, she ends up dating Bronco in Degrassi High, and she wins school presidency. Unfortunately, that's short-lived because Degrassi High would have to be shut down because of how brittle the foundation is and all that. In School's Out, she actually is a class valedictorian. Unfortunately, she gets Wheels to drive her to the store to grab chips, and they get in a crash. Lucy is temporarily blind, but thankfully recovers from injuries. Her eyesight is restored, and she's able to walk with a cane. She actually has an honors bachelor's degree, a master's degree, and worked towards a PhD. She's in Next Generation's first episode when she joins the joint reunion. A day before the reunion, Joey sells her a Volkswagen Beetle for a relocation to New Mexico for a company and to be at the University of New Mexico for doctoral dissertation. All that. So yeah, well, a lot of people forgot that Lucy actually wanted Wheels to drive her to the store to get chips and all that, even though Wheels was under the influence. She has a little bit of responsibility, not full responsibility, because Wheels did do that. Then we have the twins, Erica and Heather, the Farrell twins, who were played by real twins, Angela and Maureen Dysech. But anyway, Erica and Heather, I don't really have a lot to say about them. I mean, it's not because I don't like them, it's just because I can't remember a lot of stuff about them. So Melanie was in this one. I can't remember much about Melanie, even though she went for the first 5 years. I think I would say she was the shy one that had troubles making speeches at Degrassi Junior High. Erica and Heather, one of them got pregnant and all that, and had to have an abortion and all that. Kathleen was in. Yeah, Kathleen is basically Caitlin's rival, Caitlin Ryan's rival. So anyway, Kathleen was a secondary character who disapproved of Stephanie's presidency and her wardrobe. She was the sour, troubled foil to Caitlin throughout much of the series, competing with her for grades. In season 2, we find out about Kathleen's alcoholic mother, whose behavior is affecting her daughter. Kathleen tries to do things, all that, but her mother's, again, drinking heavily. And Kathleen ends up having anorexia nervosa, and Melanie helps her out. Kathleen keeps having her anorexia thing. She gets her counseling, and then she actually dates a boy named Scott. Unfortunately, Scott is an overly possessive boyfriend and physically assaults Kathleen. After Scott hits her, Kathleen breaks up with him. This was the first time we had a very abusive boyfriend-girlfriend relationship that involved violence. I believe the next one would be Rick and Terry in season 3 of Next Gen. So anyway, Kathleen does get her counseling and all that. She basically has homophobic views, is against sex before marriage, and is critical of animal rights activism. She had some things. You know, Kathleen did not like Caitlin at all. Rick Monroe was in 10 episodes. I don't know what Rick Monroe was about. Caitlin in the first 5 seasons of, well, in all 5 seasons of Degrassi. Stacey Musician was actually Lisa in Kids of Degrassi Street. I forgot about that. So anyway, Caitlin was in 57 episodes. But Caitlin was a decent person and all that. Of course, we're not going to talk about her next gen run because that's for the next video. But anyway, Caitlin was seen as being very political and all that. Her views and all that. In season 2, we learned that Caitlin suffers from seizures and she tries to hide from the other girls. And basically, she was trying to be a grade grabber and all that. A lot of people think that her role as Caitlin in Degrassi Junior High / High was basically the influence for Emma's stuff in Degrassi Next Gen. But we'll see what. But it's kind of a little bit in the gray. Caitlin was with Joey several times and all that. They had an on again, off again relationship. Caitlin was about, I think, 1 year younger than Joey, I think. But anyway, Caitlin graduated faster than Joey, strangely enough. But anyway, Caitlin has a relationship with Claude Tanner and all that. Unfortunately, she finds Claude's true colors when they go for an animal activist thing, and basically Claude leaves her high and dry, trying to do some vandalism. So Caitlin's put in community service and all that. She harbors ill fate towards Claude. She basically does not want Claude around her. And of course, Claude kills himself, and then he sends flowers, basically saying goodbye forever, Caitlin. Basically trying to make her look bad and all that. Because Claude wanted Caitlin. Caitlin felt bad for herself, but Joey tells her that it's not Caitlin's fault. It was Claude's. Claude was just being terrible. So anyway, Caitlin, you know, has a relationship with Joey, but unfortunately Joey messes that up and things happen. Of course, Next Gen, we'll talk about Caitlin's role in Next Gen, I think. I wonder if that thing I remember looking at also talks about Caitlin. All that. students, adults. Oh yeah, so they'll talk about Caitlin and Joey and all that. Yeah, okay, that's fine. So yeah, so Caitlin was kind of uptight as a kid in the Degrassi series. LD Delacourt um, was in the first 4 seasons. She wasn't in the last season of Degrassi High. LD, I believe, was in a really. Was it? Was she the one that was in the relationship with a black guy? I can't remember. And it pissed off LD's parents? I think it did. I think LD's parents. Oh no. Oh, who was that? Oh, I think it was. Oh no, it was Michelle who was the one who had the interracial relationship, not LD. LD actually had a competition with Joey when LD's locker was made of hot Sun Boys, I think, because the Toronto Sun used to run Sun Boys and Sun Girls and all that, and then all that, yeah. And then there comes Spike, who was in 62 episodes. Spike was with the punk hair stuff that was kind of funny and all that. Unfortunately, her first major storyline was in season 1 when she, and it's late, when she realizes that she's pregnant after having sex with Shane. So she's pregnant and all that. And unfortunately, Mr. Lawrence, the unseen principal, basically kicks her out, saying that the parents basically don't want a pregnant kid at the school. It would be bad influence. Now, of course, this is the 1980s when teen pregnancy was really not as seen or heard of, if you will. So basically, Spike has to fail, and then basically all that. But unfortunately, Emma ended up getting sick as an infant and all that, and that ruined Spike's chances at education at times. But Spike was appreciative of the fact that Emma was bringing her much joy and all that. Spike and Shane didn't really have a lot of talk and all that after Degrassi Junior High. I think once it happened. But anyway, so anyway, she's with Emma and all that. They have a little bit of a preschool at the school. I think they'll have Emma there. Spike tries to go out with a few guys like Patrick from Ireland and then ends up with Snake, which we saw hints of in Degrassi High. You know, that Snake being with a Spike, and Emma. So yeah, we'll talk about more about her in the next gen thing. Alexa Papadopoulos. Alexa was in from the start. She had that key relationship with Simon. That was the big hit in Degrassi High. So basically, they were the it couple, if you will. And of course, their wedding was part of the Degrassi movie Schools Out. Simon Dexter, you know, Alexa's better half and all that. There was BLT, Bryant Lester Thomas, 48 episodes. Well, Simon was introduced in season 2. BLT was in season 2. Of course, BLT had that relationship with Michelle, and Michelle's parents were disapproving of that because BLT was black. And then there's Liz. And there's Liz, who was in 49 episodes. Kathy Keenan. Oh, Liz was Spike's kind of better half, if you will, because Liz also was into punk like Spike. So basically, so Liz and Spike were together and all that as best friends and all that. They always hung around each other. And then there was Michelle, who, of course, was with BLT in that relationship. Dwayne was in season 2. Strange how he was in season 2 for a few episodes, and then all of a freaking sudden he wasn't in season 3. But I think it was because he was a year older than those guys. It's strange how Dwayne was not even in the first season. But anyway, Dwayne is the character that we remember as being caught with HIV because of his relationship with a girl that had the virus. So basically, he ends up being HIV positive, but not AIDS positive. He doesn't have AIDS. It's kind of like Magic Johnson. Like, he has HIV, but the AIDS he doesn't have. Thank goodness for that. But anyway, Dwayne was a bully to Joey and all that. Degrassi High, there was always the rivalry between Dwayne and Joey. But the weird thing is, the last episode of Degrassi High, well, it's not Schools Out, because that's the movie. But anyway, Dwayne gets castrated after being outed as having HIV. Joey isn't completely blamed for it, but like Dwayne thinks Joey did it, but Joey said, no, I didn't do anything. It just slipped out for other people, I guess. So anyway, Dwayne is told not to come to the dance because everyone was afraid of Dwayne because of his HIV thing. But Joey calms Dwayne down at the dance. He basically tells them that it's their fault. They're jerks. And, they playfully talk to each other and hurt each other, but, that's what happens. There were a lot of secondary characters. There was Tim, who was, of course, the guy who accidentally gave acid to Shane when Shane fell off the bridge. All that. There was Alex, Nancy. Trish was in the first 3 seasons. Trish had that Mohawk style haircut and all that. Of course, she had learning disabilities and all that, but she got through it. There was Scooter, played by Chris Charlesworth. Scooter and Nathaniel? No, Bartholomew. Oh. Well, Scooter was in season 2. Basically, he was protected by Dwayne, but when he finds out about Dwayne bullying Joey, he doesn't want anything to do with Dwayne. So Scooter was a decent person. Scooter and Bartholomew were the friendship that took the place of Yick and Arthur, interracial friendships. Maya Goldberg was in this one too. Maya, the girl in the wheelchair and all that. That was Caitlin's right-hand person. Diana Dorothy, who was in Degrassi High, but basically she was Arthur's cousin. Allison, okay. Tessa Campanelli was in 3 seasons. Christian Bourne. So Tessa was the one who had that abortion thing when Joey got her pregnant and all that. We saw that in Degrassi Schools Out. But she also inadvertently caused the burning of Degrassi Junior High alongside Scooter because they were playing tag and then they went in the boiler room and there was a series of events that basically tore the school apart. Claude, played by David Armand Parcels. Joanne was in it. Joanne was basically trying to help Claude deal with his problems, but Claude basically had problems. He couldn't stand either of his parents and all that. And basically a lot of things drove him to suicide. There was Scott. And Bronco. I like Bronco. He was a good guy. And then, of course, you got a lot of teachers and all that. Mr. Webster was the science teacher. He was Scottish and all that. He's the one who basically hands out the letters that said that Degrassi High was basically closing down, and then the students would be all moved to other schools. Mr. Wallfish, that's it. Mr. Wallfish was the one who was the film teacher who helped Lucy out, and Mr. Wallfish was a decent person too. Will's grandmother was only in 6 episodes? I would have thought she would have been in like double digits. Mr. Garcia was the math teacher in season 3. Mr. Colby was the substitute teacher. Will's dad. Surprise! Helen and Jim Wheeler were in 4 episodes only. Swim coach, Mr. Joe. Mr. Lawrence, the unseen school principal. He only makes an appearance voiceover 13 times. Doris, the school secretary, she was only 19. Wow. Miss Avery was the geography teacher in junior high. She was the one who tried to talk to Spike about getting courses and all that after having to miss school because of Emma's sickness. And Mr. Radich, the English teacher and all that. He was the vice principal in Degrassi High, but anyway. He was an English teacher in junior high and all that. He was portrayed as being caring in a sense. I mean, when you look back, when people look back at like his work with Degrassi Junior High and High, the 2 things, it's basically, Radich wasn't as bad as it seemed to be. But you got to remember, a different era means different things about education and all that. So I think that's what things happened. So anyway, that's the major characters for the OG form of Degrassi, and then we'll talk about characters from the Degrassi Next Generation thing. So that's that for this video. Stay tuned for the next one.